This is the most recent. Okay.
We're up and going online.
We are
Ken.
good to go so far.
Good. And the clock was fixed. That clock was running slow. So the clock company put all new workings in there. So we should be good to go. If you don't have it, the agenda is right as you come into the right, and the whole bit there too. So I was showing 5 o'clock straight up. Are we ready, Ken?
We're ready.
Great. Mics are live. Mics are live. So here we go. Welcome, everybody. This is our official first meeting, but it's a special meeting, November 12th at 5 p.m. Because the township has a meeting right after this. So we moved this meeting up a little bit too. We're meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act with the state of Michigan, the governor's office. Realize when you come up to make public comment, that gives us the opportunity to put your name and face on video. So you are giving us the power and authority to do that when you give us your name and your address and you come up. So go from there. I would start, usually we have all the Boy Scouts come. It's a special meeting. I think we can do the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody could stand with me tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Super. Most of you, I think, are frequent flyers, so know that I'm your guide through this, so we won't need too much tutelage on that. So I'm going to call this meeting officially to order now. We could do a roll call. Clerk Smith, please.
Mayor Turnbull.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Morosky Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Janetti.
Here.
Councilmember Krenz.
Here. Great. So we have a full quorum tonight. Thank you very much for adjusting your schedules. We're going to go to number three, approval of the agenda. We only have one thing on the agenda tonight. This is consideration of the farmers market, and we'll go through 2 or 3 different sections on that, but that is the only thing. Is there anything to add or delete from the agenda tonight from council members? If not, I'm looking for a motion to go forward with the agenda.
I have one clarifying question.
Sure.
Should I add the document that we have, Joe?
I think you can just make the motion.
Okay, I'll make
From
the
the seat.
motion from
Yeah.
that. It's just a more detailed motion. Okay, so I move to approve the agenda.
Great. So we have a motion. Do we have support for that motion? Okay, we have a double support from, okay, no you. Okay, but both of you, put them both down for God's sakes. So with that, I think we can do this. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. So tonight, one thing is on before I go to public comment on anything else. The one thing on the agenda will be for the farmers market area or the Norfolk Commons area. If you're here to talk about that, I will open it up at that time. So you have 3 minutes at that time. If there's anything else on your mind, this would be the time. But if you have something regarding farmers market, you want to talk about that, I will open up again. This is not the time. If there's something other than farmers market, this would be the time. Just come up to the mic, full name and address, and I will take that. Anybody in the audience right now? Ms. Long. Former Ms. Long.
Hi, Allison Long, 392 Fairbrook Court. I'm here today because we feel the need to address a statement that was made during public comment at last week's Planning Commission meeting by Mayor Pro Tem Barbara Morosky Brown.
Was me?
I can see it has hit a nerve with her that we have made the statement more than once that the business closure of Design du Jour on Main Street was in part due to the street closures. At the PC meeting, you got up to state that this business was on a month-to-month lease and he actually closed because of an increase in his rent. Neither of these statements are true. We never even got to discuss what his lease renewal would look like because he was ready to close. So hearing this statement last week reminded me of a weird story that Sam from Design du Jour told me shortly before he closed. And on Friday, I called him to confirm. He said a woman with a small dog who he recognized as Barbara Morosky Brown from City Council came into his store in his final days of being open. She said, "It's sad that Jim Long is raising your rent $1,000. He was confused by this and corrected her in saying he had not even talked to Jim or Allison about his lease renewal. She tried to get him to say he wanted the streets to remain closed. He said, "No, I think the streets should be open." Sam told her he didn't see any of it this way. He found this very odd coming from someone representing the city. We are taken aback and disappointed, both by your conversation with our tenant, as you have no right to interfere in our private business relationships, and by the similar comments made in a public forum in your capacity as an elected official, identifying yourself to the PC as Mayor Pro Tem and spreading a lie that, in fact, we are the reason for this business closure is harmful and unethical. We are currently landlord to 22 businesses on Main Street. We take pride in our relationships with our tenants and being a reasonable landlord. Your comments are harmful to our tenant relationships, current and future. It is also harmful to our own business and to our reputation, which we work hard at maintaining. Yes, we know that businesses come and go for a number of reasons, but in this instance, it is clear that Sam felt the street closure negatively affected his business. So all we have done is pass that information on. We have never pushed our opinion on the street closures on our tenants because we can respect those who might have a differing opinion. Your words carry weight. People will inherently believe you because of your position, but these comments are false and even slanderous. I assume there is a code of conduct that you all must adhere to as members of City Council. I would imagine that spreading harmful misinformation in an attempt to further your own personal opinion or agenda and to sway public opinion goes against that code of conduct. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Allison.
I would like to pass out just this letter and also a signed affidavit I have backing up statements about Sam, just because I assume.
I'll deal with it all.
I
So,
know this is public comment right now,
yeah, not me.
so no need to respond to anything. You'll probably talk in the future with them.
At the end.
That's correct. So at the end, I give everybody a chance to have comments, on council. Barbara Morosky Brown might say something at that point in time. So this is public comment.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else other than down at the farmer's market area? This would be the time. Yep. Mr. Brazen.
That reason, 370 Fairwood. I got a question about the water bill. You guys came up with this ready to serve whatever. You said it was, your bill would go up by 10 to 20%. Mine went up, my water bill was 70 and the right to serve or whatever that is was $60. Why is my water bill so expensive? And you guys even had examples of how many gallons you use a month, what it would cost you. I used less than half of your example, and my bill was higher than what you guys said it was gonna be. So I need somebody, if you can put me in touch with somebody, to explain how this is working, because this is crazy. Then I hear you guys want another bond for water to fix the infrastructure. No. So I appreciate if somebody, give me somebody to explain how this is working.
Absolutely.
Because there's plenty of people that are pretty miffed about the price of water all of a sudden.
Thank you, Ed. We'll have DPW do an analysis on yours, not here, public comment. So if we could do that, we'll talk tomorrow. Thank you, Ed. Anybody else? Anything other than the farmer's market? Going once? Going twice? Okay, I'm closing off public comment on everything other than the farmer's market. Any written communications that we received? I don't think anything came in by 4 o'clock today on this subject. There was some, anything, Clerk Smith?
No.
No, this is a special meeting. Usually we have a whole package. I expect everybody to read it from front to back. With that, we will go to section 5, new business. And let me just start off by saying the new business, we call this farmer's market. We call it the commons area. We call it the area, pretty much the last piece of dirt in the city, between the city and the township is the back part of this. We have been working almost as many hours as we worked on the downs. There's 650 hours on the downs for deliberations. I think there's been about 400 hours on this. We appreciate the partnership that we've had with the township. We talk about this as a farmer's market. This is kind of a commons area for a lot of different things. The county is kind of excited to do different things. The township, us, festivals, movies in the park, parking there, staging of the parades, even car shows. I know I'm the motorsport mayor, but a lot of different things. It's the utilization that corner long-term. And we are looking even under Parks and Recreation to have that fully utilized and programmed out. But that is what we're talking about. We spent some years looking at this, and we had a whole task force, and Nancy Darga is here, and the whole Farmers Market Task Force. We looked at 6 or 7 locations. This was the optimal location. We appreciate all the work of many of you in here, including Councilman Krenz and others that spent years on this. So with that, that's the backdrop. Don't mean to go too long. I will toss it over to my esteemed colleague and friend from the township. We are a partnership in everything we do. Both the township, Mark and I are on the Conference of Western Wayne. They look at us the way we do different things in Northville. They all want that different relationship among different groups. We are truly appreciative of the partnership, the friendships. Our different department managers work together. We do different dispatch together, lockup. Our IT is together. We try to save as much money for our citizens. So with that, I thank you for being here, Mark, and for adding any more to that. Didn't mean to take any of your thunder. It's all yours, my friend.
Thank you, Mayor Turnbull. My name is Mark Abbo. I'm the Northville Township Supervisor. And I echo the same thoughts that you had. I think that we've got a great partnership with the city. And we are actually excited to partner with the city in this endeavor. We had a meeting last week to talk about the diligence that was performed. I think that that's going to be presented to City Council today. We actually have a meeting today at 7 o'clock to actually vote on going forward with the agreement on the purchase of the farmers market. And after the purchase, we'll have 30 days to close, and I'm very confident that we'll do it. And I'm just going to a couple of comments that I made to my board. There was an initial comment about why are we buying land in the city of Northville? And I always respond, we're not buying land in the city of Northville. We're investing in the city of Northville because a healthy, vibrant downtown area is important to Northville Township and adds value to Northville Township. And we believe it's important. I know that the city council has primary responsibility for that, but I think that the township has to take some secondary responsibility for that as well to make sure that it's healthy and vibrant. It's a large piece of land, the largest piece of land that's probably left close to the downtown area. And we consider it very important. I think that my personal opinion, and we will be voting on it today at 7 o'clock, but if we don't take this opportunity now, we will regret it forever. And it will be more than a farmer's market. It will be for all the parades that are held in Northville. It could be a great staging area and other amenities. Northville Township is actually in a unique position. We are at 31,000 residents based on the last census. We will probably peak out at about 35,000. So we are right now exploring and trying to establish levels of service and amenities for a community of about 31,000 or 35,000 residents. And to me, this is an extremely important part of that. So actually, I'm going to reverse this on you, Mayor, and say thank you for letting us participate in it.
You bet. Thank you very much. And again, from the township and the city, we have already made agreements on the back portion behind Inch Monuments to go forward with that. This is the front portion, and you'll hear in this presentation how we bring them together in one land bank between the city and the township. So with that, we thank you. And we didn't mention it, but Mark and I have been busily working with Wayne County on additional land, 4 or 5 acres for parking that they own just across the river, across that bridge, which is conduent or in connecting to that. And they are very excited about that. We might have to have some upkeep on that, but there's a parking lot there already that we can use as we start it. And they are working with us to see how we have more parking and amenities on that. So excited. Mark has spent a lot of time with the Wayne County folks, and we had them out last Thursday, people from the governor's office, from the county, from both counties, and from SEMCOG to see how we can get this to work long term. So all yours, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Manager. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm Gary Roberts. I'm a planning consultant, originally retained by the township to essentially assemble all of the due diligence that's required by any purchaser, in your case, the purchaser of the land that we're talking about for the farmer's market. And so to do that, we put together, how do
I'm sorry, we temporarily lost it here.
we lost it here?
Let me see if I can get it back. Let me,
So dance a little bit,
Yeah.
he'll find you.
let me borrow the mouse just for 1 second here.
So just so you know, we put together a strong team. George Sackhoff from OHM, who's one of your, of course, trusted advisors here in the town, was integral to what we're doing here. And we in turn then retained other people like G2 Consulting for geotechnical, AKT Peerless for environmental. You know, these are well-known people in town to essentially provide you the backup that you need to confidently buy this property with the appropriate technical support, knowing what's out there and knowing what we're doing. I don't need to give you a lot of background on this property. It's something you've had for 100 years, so that would be silly. But I do want to go through the site and just touch on some of these technical points briefly, assuming we can see them.
Yeah, just one moment.
And we'll just walk through that. And in addition to the existing conditions, meaning the topography and the soil conditions and environmental so forth, we also felt it was prudent to do to expand on some of the work that your committee has done and Ms. Darga has done in terms of a test fit, meaning, okay, we've got this property, we've got this 3.8 acres, roughly 3.3 net buildable. We've got this land. What could we fit on there? What if we max it out, and not really max it out in terms of parking, but max it out in terms of use, the building, the parking, the circulation, the things that we know that are going to make it a great project. If we use that land, how much can we get on there? So I'm going to show you at the end, I'm going to show you that as well.
And again, as Gary mentioned, as you're getting that up, we started at the end of 2019. By the beginning of 2020, we had 3 different task forces in town. One was for the farmer's market and about 20 or 25 people. One was for the Riverwalk and one was for Ford Field. You can see all those things come to fruition. Those are all under the leadership of Nancy today, but we've had input from all the council members on those. So we have had a 4 or 5 year run on this is the right place. And I tried to stall for another minute for you there.
I think I got it.
Ken, okay, good. Hopefully that works for you and let her rip. If not, Dave Gutman, see what you can do. Oh, we got it.
Everything closed, so
We're good to go.
it acted, the mouse idea closed everything. I gotta be
Excellent.
very careful with the mouse. There we go.
Okay.
It's all yours.
All right. So I'm already ahead of the game because I've skipped a couple of slides here.
Excellent.
Am I able to change the screen? too?
Yeah.
Okay, it's done. We talked about the team and all the people and the right people. There was also a structural engineer involved and a surveyor involved that I did not mention. I talked to you about the content for today.
Yes.
I'm not talking to you about the background, something that you know better than I do.
400 hours of it. We appreciate it.
100 hours of it. As the mayor mentioned, this is comprised of the 2 parcels, which is graphically delineated here. The township has the northern or the purple piece under contract. And of course, you have the southern piece under option agreement. And so that's the split from Inch Memorials, which is here. I don't know where my arrow is, but anyway, that comprises the whole thing.
But not, just to go back down there for clarification,
Yes.
it is the hatched yellow site that we have the agreement on for purchase. And tonight we're looking at what's that purple blue
Purple.
site, right?
Yeah.
And that yellow site at the side is not part of any agreement. That's the
At this point, it
existing
is not.
Inch Memorials.
It is
Just,
not part
you
of
know-
the
Yep,
agreement.
right. Yep,
Although,
absolutely.
as we sit here today, that is one parcel of land.
Correct.
So
That
that
it
needs
has
to be
to be.
split.
Correct.
So that's the only reason it comes up and actually is shown on the survey that way because it's not yet
Yeah,
split.
correct.
Right.
Thank you. Just for
Correct.
visual.
Okay, just in terms of the existing site, I think everybody knows that. The grass area in the middle, there is the site of course, the old car dealership building. And the only other thing that you see besides some old asphalt in the area is the stuff that Inch Memorials is storing at the very south edge of the site there.
Yes.
The site generally flows, from the northeast corner toward the stream, which is along the west edge of the property line. If you could see the topo in greater detail, that's what you would appreciate.
Right.
In terms of natural resources, I think everybody knows that the site has, bounded by the Heinz Park and the Rouge tributary there. And it's just absolutely a beautiful property, particularly along the west edge. The views to the west are really nice, and we need to capitalize those. The river has something that's been a little bit controversial, and we were concerned about it. Has the seawall and retaining wall there. I know that the township DPS manager was concerned that, boy, that seawall is not in good shape. That could be a big deal. And it would have been. Our structural engineer did go there and check it out, with the exception of some erosion around the end, which you see on the right side of this slide, which needs to have some stone or put in there so it doesn't continue to erode behind it, though. The sheet piling itself appears to be in good condition, and I would certainly anticipate that will last a long time. So I'm not too concerned about that, but we did check it out. The surveys, as we just talked about, the left-hand survey is the property to the south, and the right-hand survey is a property to the north, which in all cases for survey purposes right now, that gets tied to the attorney, and he will run the title work based off of these documents here. This has been updated in the last month. Geotechnical wise, meaning soil borings, we did a grid across the site. And you can see those small little circles there suggest where we drilled some soil borings. There is not the best of soils here structurally, but they're not terrible either. What will end up happening is the light building that we build will be a lightly loaded building. The building that we build will have to be built on some slightly deeper foundations. The term of art is usually helical piers, which is something you drill down into the ground and support the building that way, so it gives it a lower bearing point. But anyway, geotechnically, we'll be able to support a lightly loaded building like we're talking about. Environmentally, there is some challenges that relate to the history of the site. The car dealership had, of course, all of the things that car dealerships have. There's a very thick updated environmental report that has all kinds of chemical analysis in it and throws out terms like chromium and benzene and arsenic and so forth. The important thing to note is, though, that for this particular use, we're going to exactly pave over most of the site, which would be the term of art that would be remedial, meaning we're going to cover it and we're not going to deny access to it, and we're not going to have anything available to come in direct contact with. The arsenic comes from actually the history before the car dealership, which is from an old orchard, which probably used various pesticides and things. The benzene and some of the shop-related ethyl methyl bad stuff comes from the dealership function itself, but it seems to be well contained and it is not affected by the groundwater. So we will, as a buyer, the collective we as a buyer, will file a baseline environmental report, which will give us the indemnity from the state against these chemicals, meaning as long as you don't put any more of them out there than are there in the baseline report, then you are indemnified from any action by the state might want to take. So I think we have a good handle on that. And again, you could read until you fell asleep at night, all of the long environmental assessment. But there is plenty of backup now to support the position that we can get the indemnity that we need as a buyer. So I'm comfortable with that. Just in terms of utilities, the only thing that I was surprised to learn that on the very west edge of the site along the stream is a 42-inch sanitary interceptor line, which is the red line that you see on this screen. And probably the reason that soil or that seawall is even there in the first place, so that edge does not erode into the stream and somehow jeopardize that line. So that seawall becomes a very important piece of our equation, and we got to make sure that that stays integrally sound structurally. But anyway, we have sanitary there. We have water on two sides. We have Detroit Edison utility lines behind the buildings there. So I think in terms of the public utilities, we've looked at it. We find that they're all available and we'll be able to use those as we need them. Another interesting note about stormwater. In the soil borings, in the newest stormwater requirements for the county, you must do a permeability test because they really want stormwater to suck into the ground if it possibly can do it versus be retained on site and then discharge into the stream, which we will do. Our soil is not permeable. We're going to have to store stormwater both on the site, probably in some combination of underground system and a detention pond, because if we can sneak some pond in there, it's actually a more economical move for us than trying to build compartments to store stormwater under the site. So that'll be our goal, is to have a sort of a mixed use thing that uses two different types of stormwater system. But in any case, we need to. And as a reminder, the contract provides that we are also going to take the stormwater from the Sellers building, at the far northeast corner of the site, because he has no place to put stormwater. His parking lot is all paved out and it all runs in our direction. So we have to pick that up as well. In terms of regulatory agencies, basically the city itself, because it's all contained within the city's limits, is going to be the lead regulatory agency, although we've got the county involved because of the stormwater and the things that go with that. And the state is involved, of course, because that's a waters of the state that runs through our site. So we'll have to deal with all of those things. In terms of the site development, as I mentioned to you, we had to take a look at the site. We had to take a look at what could possibly fit there. So you see some SketchUp version of that here. And how we could use it. And the use, by the way, we see in two different steps. Mayor has and Mrs. Darga have said very clearly, in May, we will have a farmer's market. Here we are in November. We're not going to have much of a different farmer's market, but we are going to have one. So the yellow on this screen here suggests that that's where we would basically put our parking. We would put our little storage building, and we would put probably some rental restrooms. The left part, or the eastern edge of the site, is probably the best condition for paving. So I think what we'll do is we'll utilize that for the vendors, and we'll put everybody else that fits parking wise in the yellow part of this site. And that's how our interim, we've budgeted some money to do this. If we can see our way through clear regulatory wise, we can mill down some pavement, we can seal it off, we can bring in some parking lot lights off the utility poles. We can spend, something under $100,000 and get it, I think, to be in a decent condition. So that's assuming that we can talk our regulatory people out of doing something with stormwater and so forth. But anyway, let's move down here. Sorry, this is a little bit painfully slow for me. So here's a plan view of what could be, not necessarily what is. And I know a lot of architectural work has come before us, but we had to sit with the park committee and talk about, what would be a really good design solution. I'm just going to go 2 minutes here, Mr. Mayor, and talk about this.
No problem.
So as you know, the new safety path is coming up 7 Mile. Going to come along the east side of the road here, jump across, and we'll have a safety path that connects to the main path, which, runs along the park system here. And then of course to the northwest running into the town. We set up a building that's about 13,000 feet, has a couple of wings and a central portion that sort of fronts along 7 Mile there. We thought it was very good to have it up front and prominent in its location. As you know, now there's a mile of curb cut across here. I mean, you can drive anywhere and everywhere. It's crazy. But when in the final solution, we want to have a circulation that runs around the building and then back out onto 7 Mile that we could use for buses and drop off and people that are coming from maybe even from a senior's place or something else that we needed to just park and not park, but just get off a bus and get out. The little squares that you see are vendor booths that will be outside. The building is such that it would have a 30-foot aisle in the middle in our test fit case and 10 by 10 booths lining the building in either way. We set up a very strong pedestrian circulation right off of our new path, right through the middle of the building, all the way to the back, to what we're going to call a feature back here, which could be picnic tables or sculpture, or could be some above ground gardens, something that relates well to the project. But we want to set up to connect, again, pedestrian wise, you know, from that area. This scheme right here gives us about 90 vendor stalls of 10 by 10 and gives us about 123 parking places on site, 120, call it, parking places on site. In addition, as you know, the seller has a parking lot here. We're looking to put together in a final version of the closing documents, a cross parking agreement where he can use some of our parking when he needs to, and we're not there, and we can use some of his parking when we need to, and he's not there. So that would pick us up another 30 spaces right here. The mayor mentioned the park across the little bridge, which in our picture is right. My cursor is hard. I have to.
Yep, right there.
Right there. And then there's this open area down here which has, by the baseball field, which has access and parking. Easily, if the county will agree to what we asked for, we could easily put another 200 cars over there if we had to. I don't think we'll ever have to do that, but what we can do and what we should do is get all of our vendors to go over there with their trucks and park there, get them off the site, come around the back, and then come back to the bridge and man their thing. That would be in a perfect scenario. So what does that really look like? What could that really look like? It may be something like this, where you have an open air pavilion and have all the things we talked about. You see the little parking lot kind of through the woods over there across the bridge. That's the overflow parking, but the circulation and view that we talked about, this is what could fit. I know that there's a lot more architectural input that needs to be done to get to that, but this is done again in the name of due diligence, so you can feel comfortable that we've looked at it technically, we've looked at it at least this level of planning. Here's what I could put there if the powers line up to do that. Just one final note here on how much would that be? The construction manager who's building our essential services complex out on 7 Mile, I dragged him over there, sent him these drawings, and I said, I need some budgeting so that we can be in the ballpark of what we're talking about here. I mentioned to you earlier on the interim market, I think between $90,000 and $100,000, if we can do what we want to do with mill some asphalt, put a sealer on it, bring in some lights, bring in a little storage building and things that we know that we have to have minimal to make it go. We could do that for $90,000 to $100,000. If we build the open air market, he's telling us with all the site work, which is going to be a big piece of this, by the way, with all the site work, we should be budgeting between $4 and $4.5 million to get that done. The only caveat to that I wanted to throw out is I also asked him to put in there, let's prep the building, let's not install it, but let's prep the building structurally so that we could have overhead doors to close the thing off, so we could stub in plumbing, we could stub in power, we could have some lights, minimal lighting in there, and eventually we'd have a fully enclosed building. But I don't want to blow anything site work wise. I want to set it all up now. So in that budget is the setup for the building, but doesn't include any of the guts, if you will. If you wanted offices and other things, we don't have that. But we do have it set up to do that in the future. We'd put in the right foundations, we'd put in the right floor slab, those kinds of things. So so anyway, Mr. Mayor, that's as fast as I could do it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
If there's any questions about what you've got, it's been duplicated. Some of the stuff is in the package that you have summarized. And then there's, like I said, there's other hundreds of backup to the report, hundreds of pages if you want that.
Great. Gary, I'd ask you to stay there just for a second. So if we have some questions. No, there's a lot of discussion back and forth in the township on parking. We believe we've handled a lot of the parking with Mark and I working with the county. 200 spots, literally closer than most of the spots that they have today. We believe sometime we'll have 50 spots up and down on River Street, right from the log cabin up in that area. Right next door, we do have in the agreement at least a minimum of 30 spots at the workout place on the corner. He has another 20 spots on the other side. So that is an opportunity. Across the street, Custard Time has written that they would have all those spots available when they could. So that is there too. So we are looking at all the opportunities besides the 125 spots, which are there. People come and go. And we're looking more than just the farmer's market when we have events, and we need to have different activities that will connect to that. And the county land is really good. If we have festivals or whatever, we can put a few hundred cars over there. So thank you. That was a large discussion we had in the township over the past 6 months. So thank you for all your work. You can stay right there just in case anybody else on council has input or questions. And I'll open it up to the public, for your comment. Others. Barbara.
Well, I'll just kick it off. I want to say thank you very much for the township to being great partners in building our better community. I think part of this is the price is a bitter pill for all of us on this particular piece of property, but it is what it is. It's a bit above what we had hoped it would be, over a year ago. But we understand this is dirt we have before us and what we have left. And the location has been vetted for several years, as Councilmember Krentz knows, because he headed up Farmers Market years ago.
Yes.
This is the place to do it. It makes sense on so many levels. So this is wonderful. Thank you for the partnership and also for the Allen family, because that's the other piece of this, which is we're not getting to this evening, but also they're being a part of this. And I look forward to finalizing that document as well. But on OHM, it's a very thick report. Thank you for that pretty bound copy. And that, that due diligence went beyond what the city had done. But I didn't see any surprises in here. We know this is a dirty site, it's got arsenic and other things. We think originally maybe an apple orchard. So there's a lot things that need to be cleaned up, but for our application, this will work out. As you mentioned, there is going to be site cleanup needed, but it isn't like you're putting in basements, you're putting in residential. Our use is different. So there was no surprise. There was no surprise on the conditions that they found when they did that additional work, except for 12 feet of fill. And so that means we have to have a little different foundation for a vertical structure. But other than that, there was no surprise. And so that's good news. The other is the conditions in the agreement were very similar to what we had prior. So that, with the seller on this, moving forward. And so I'm looking at this and I'm very comfortable, both with, there are things we're aware of, that we're dealing with and we have eyes wide open. And I'm so glad that we're moving forward with this and in partnership with the township. So that's it.
Great. Others on council.
Just one thing, just to keep in mind, and we can talk about this, but the back part that you said we'll probably never need to use. I wish where additional parking will be. I feel like that is a wasted section. So that's something I'd love to talk about at some point.
Sure.
Okay.
So Wayne County to the side is something they use. We can use that parking right away, but yeah, we'll talk about that in great detail as we go
Hidden
forward.
back there,
Yep.
out of sight, out of mind.
You're right. Absolutely. Others.
Yeah, Mayor, I could go for hours and hours and I definitely will not.
Please don't, but go right ahead.
I've got a lot in already, but
Township meeting at 7
Yeah,
o'clock.
yeah.
I know.
I wanna get to
You want to prep at
Just wanna
6:30. I got
reiterate
it.
to Mr. Abbo and the township. It's fantastic. Been working with you on this and many other things. I hope it keeps going. This has been a really good partnership. Gary, thank you for everything that you had here. This was everything I was hoping that we could have done ourselves, but over time, when you get the professionals involved, you can see how it comes together. So it was really well done. In terms of large markets and parking, like you look at Traverse City, you look at Detroit, you look at Ann Arbor, it's a neighborhood level event. It's not just self-park on the site. So when you look at and you count fingers and toes and the number of spots there, and then if you add in the 30 here and 40 here and then back there, and then maybe there's some parking on River or whatever, that's how other successful markets flow through. They flow through neighborhoods. I think the really good ones do, because you get a lot of neighborhoods real close, a lot of foot traffic and all that. So I'm glad we've done our diligence, not surprised on that front. Long-term utilization, I really fully support, and I think it's almost necessary that we look at designing the structure as the long-term plan for a four-season environment, because we got to keep utilization rates up.
Right.
And if we can keep the utilization rates up, then we're gonna be in great shape. I've been saying that since 2019. And then, I want to go back to a planning survey as my last point. In 2019, when we were working some site plan or some master plan, and when the Downs came through and we did a survey of the entire community, the top two things that the community wanted, and it wasn't even close, were the Riverwalk at the Downs site and a farmer's market in downtown. And we're this close to getting there on what the community really wants and what they see as being the top amenities here. So I couldn't be more excited. I'm looking forward to where this is going to go.
Thank
That's
you,
it.
Andrew.
All
John,
right. I'll finish this off. I'll start with one kind of detailed question and then probably step up a level. So one question on the Helical Pure Foundation enhancements, which frankly I can barely pronounce, but I have had a couple 100+ year old homes in Northville.
Mhm.
And the minute you say foundation, I get nervous. I didn't see it in the detail breakdown, but just wanted to confirm the long-term plans, that 4 to 4.5 cost would include those foundation adjustments, correct?
That's correct.
And then in terms of the near term, the interim farmers market, recognizing that we are going to have parking on site, we're going to have large trucks coming on site. Is there any activity or effort required to secure the land itself and not the foundation, because we're not building a structure, but secure that or make enhancements to the soil in order to enable that?
Yeah, in the original $90,000 budget, we took a paving contractor out there. Look, if you mill this down, and then originally we asked him to, there's an emulsification that you could use to choke off the ground up pavement. He said, you don't want to do that because everybody goes back to their car and tracks black stuff into their car. We don't want to do that. But what we can do is they use a powdered limestone product. So they'll emulsify the thing, which will essentially fill the potholes. Then they'll choke it off with that. And that'll give us a hard enough surface, not for the parking lot like you're used to out here, but hard enough for them to roll the carts around and do the things that you need to do out of the mud. So that's how we price that first.
So that's included within the 100,000.
That's right. On the left hand, not on the yellow part, but on the red part of that.
where the farmers will be.
Where the farmers will be.
Okay. Couple other items. One, the parking on the Wayne County side. And I know Councilman Janetti already Councilperson Janetti already brought this up. But absolutely, I think that will be utilized. I think that's a huge opportunity, both in terms of parking for the trucks and such, but if we do this the right way, and I'm sure that Nancy Darga is going to come up and talk a lot about the number of people that come to the farmers market. But if we do this the right way and create a Northville common space, I think there will be plenty of opportunities where we'll have enough interest that we're not only going to fill the existing parking, but we'll need to leverage that. I do, as I see the plans right now, and I get these are illustrative and we're going to have to design them in architectural reviews, pedestrian flow relative to the parking is going to be a really important thing to think about, both in terms of on the site and as we think of crossing 7 Mile, coming over from Bealtown, which is already a very challenging intersection. So just a to-do for all of us that we've got to have a plan in place to address that long term. But those are all exciting things from my perspective. Councilmember Krenz already said it. This was our #1 strategic initiative and priority. #2 was the Ford Field bathrooms. So you edged me out on that one, Mr. Krenz. But it is part of also the long-term vision for the Riverwalk, the revitalized Ford Field, and ultimately how we connect the communities within the Downs development and Bealtown to all come together. So I think it's fantastic from that standpoint. We've talked a lot about the partnership with the township. The change in tone from what existed a decade or so ago to where we are today and our ability to work together as one community is phenomenal. And it is incredibly impactful for all of us. So continuing to look for those opportunities, continuing to work together, find situations where together we can do more is a way we can really have an impact on all of our residents. One other element that I just wanted to highlight. So I'm just going to address a little bit of elephant in the room. I know there's been a lot of conversations on the location, where and how. I think right now, as we've discussed here, we got feedback from our river task force. We've had feedback from several professional consultants. The best location was never going to be within the development that's coming. And so what we took a step back and need to think about is we have, and I'm not going to say the exact number of years because I don't need Mrs. Darga or Mr. Krenz to say I'm off by a year.
40,000 foot level.
But we have had a farmer's market that's one of the oldest in the state of Michigan, and it is a tradition for Northville that we need to maintain for generations to come. This is an opportunity for us to do that. So I think it is the right location, even though I recognize some of the frustration and how we navigated to this point. We found the right answer, and we found a partner to help us get to that right answer. I think that's an important thing for us to recognize, even with all the trials and tribulations that took us here. So with that, I will close up, but just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's helped to get us to this point.
Great. Before I open it up for any public comment, no, you talked about partnership too between us and the township. We had 28 people out for an infrastructure meeting, from the governor's office to the counties, to the state, to Debbie Dingle, to the federal government, different people. This was on the agenda last Thursday. And there's so many people, we couldn't do it here. We did it in the township, even though we have taken the lead on this. It was a great meeting. Since that meeting, yesterday, Rosemary Bear, who's in charge of water management up in Lansing, has looked at how she can assist in some of the water management on this site. So that was as of yesterday. Today, we got a memo from the governor's office. There's 3 new potential grants for river walks, and Nancy and I will look through that. This is a big deal. We are trying not to spend another dollar after this. I think between Mark and I and others, we are trying to do everything we can from this day forward on grants. There's no guarantee in that we can't say but we've got $8.5 million last year for grants on all these different things. We need to do that for 3 or 4 more years to do all the things we want to do. But I am very fired up on just the follow-up from last Thursday's meetings on the people that are there. And there's a lame duck session up in Lansing that I would like to get some money right now. I think both Mark and I will go after that shortly. Yes.
Can I make one quick comment?
Absolutely.
Just on, again, Mark Abbo, Northville Township Supervisor, just on some of the comments or issues associated with this land. We're going to have a farmer's market there next year, and there will be a development of the former Northville Downs property. So we did a fit to see if what we could put on that property, just to make sure that there is an opportunity for vendors and parking, but that may change. And what we need to do in the next year is evaluate how that changes. We may find more people locating other places to park, and we can open up additional vendor spots. We may be able to do that. So this is all going to be a work in process. And when Gary Roberts had mentioned the budget, Mayor, exactly what you alluded to, we are only committing to the purchase of land right now. And as for further development, we'll either find it from our respective general funds, or we will find grant money for it. So all of that is opportunity for both the city and the township, and we will find that. But the actual final design may be completely different, because we may find we need more parking, we need less parking.
That's a concept you see from
as a concept, and how the Downs development affects this property is probably going to be in a way that maybe none of us understand right now, but we will evaluate that and develop it as appropriate when the time comes to make those decisions.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor. Appreciate it. At this point, is there any comments from the audience? Come right up. Full name and address. And no, this will be on video, so people will be watching you tomorrow.
Andrew Daly, 333 East Katy Street. So I'm a little confused if the design concept we saw is actually something that's being looked at as being approved, or if it is 100% conceptual. But if it was something that was looking at potentially being approved, I think it needs a lot of work. During the Downs process, we learned a lot about walkability and barriers, things like that. For example, parking in front of Central Park was all but eliminated because it was looked at as a barrier to Main Street. So when I look at this, I see a farmer's market that's sitting, and basically there's a road, there's a parking lot, a farmer's market, another parking lot, and then this square area with a retention pond that's all hidden in the back. It'll be forgotten about, never used. So I think the design needs a lot of work. It either needs to be completely flipped 360 or turned sideways so that square and pond can be utilized. But you know, again, I was a little confused after Mark spoke. And then the other thing is parking. Parking is a hot topic always in Northville. Mr. Mayor, you said a lot of things about parking on River Street. I'm not sure that's approved. And I wouldn't want to see this get approved without the parking on River Street being established. And then Custer time, is that agreement in writing? Because a lot of that stuff is hypothetical, and until we have things in writing around here, they're just rumors. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Andrew. All right, anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, one
Go right.
clarification. So to that point, because I think you've raised a really good one, we are right now just acquiring the land. So it's a partnership to get the land itself.
Yep.
These are conceptual designs of what a long-term farmer's market could look like. But I think it's important for all of us to recognize, and I know we're going to be working to get grants. I know we're going to be looking to get investments, but we also got to pay, we got to get our OPEB and our pension to 120%. We got to pay down our debt, and Headley's not going anywhere.
Yes, we do.
So recognizing all of those things, we are acquiring land to continue the farmer's market with a vision that enables us to, at some point, look at options like this once funds become available, but that is not what we're committing to at this stage.
Good point. A lot of concepts up there. Everybody likes a really good looking place. We want the dirt and we will modify the dirt as we keep going. Others, go right ahead. We didn't mean to interrupt you.
That brazen 370 for a road. Here you guys are doing it again. First of all, who gave you permission to buy the property behind Inch? You guys said, nobody heard a thing about it. All of a sudden you're buying property. How are you allowed to do that?
Those were public meetings and it was on the agenda many times.
Oh, we.
It was there, but go right
It's
ahead.
like this meeting, when they had it posted, didn't even tell us what the meeting was about till 2 days ago. On top of that, where's the money coming from? Tell me where we're gonna get this money. We can't even get our streets fixed. You guys want a bond for water. Now you're gonna put, well, now we're up to $5, $6, $8 million for this stupid farmer's market. It sat on a piece of flat property for the last 25 years, had no problems. Why do we have to spend all this money for a farmer's market, which was originally supposed to be in with the Downs property? Why was that thrown out? I'm just tired of you guys spending money like you got it. You don't. We got enough problems in this city. And what happens to that landlocked property you're buying from Inch if this doesn't go through? How much is that property going to be worth? And what are you paying? How much is that Inch property?
It's public record. It's out there.
I heard
We'll
it's
get all those
800 grand.
answers to you
Why
tomorrow.
you-
This is
what are you
public
being
comment.
so, negative about? You can't tell us what you paid for the property?
It's public record. It's out there.
Well, we haven't bought it.
But we have an option on that. We
Okay.
had multiple meetings that it was out there. We'll
Thought
give it
about
all
that.
to. There
If
is,
this process doesn't go
all
through
public
with the
knowledge.
To
township, you've
clarify,
got a chunk of
I brought
property
up-
that you can't do anything with.
Yeah,
It's, you're probably paying way
Shouldn't
too
go
much
back.
for it.
but it's.
No, we-
public comment.
Okay, that's all I'm saying. That's a lot of money to spend on the IFCOM. You guys, here you go, right before the horse again. If you remember talking to me a year ago about buying the farmer's market property in the first place, it was only gonna be $1 million total. That's what you said, and we'll get a grant for it. Cause I said, where are you gonna get the money then? You said, oh, we'll get a grant. Well, you didn't get a grant. That whole thing fell apart. Now you got, I'm not opposed to this, but this is outrageously expensive. And until you guys have everything, well, we might get the Eagle to do this, we might get the county to give us this. Until you have all the facts, I wouldn't be buying anything. You guys owe it to the residents to have a little financial restraint here. We got 1,000 things going on and now you're gonna take on this. What's wrong with where the farmer's market was last year? Until you get this straightened out. What is the big rush? Everything's rush, rush, rush. Everything we've done in this town in the last 2 years is rush. There's no reason to rush. If you want to make this some spectacular farmer's market, fine, but just don't go running into this right now. I don't know what the rush is.
Thank you, Ed. That option that it was last year is not an option next year. That facility has been sold. So we have to find a place for the 100-year-old market. So thank you.
It's on the farmer's market site, or I mean, the common fast store site.
Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Thank you very much. I'm closing off public comment on the farmer's market.
Clarifying comment on-
Please, clarifying comments.
Because I did bring up and thank the Allen family for their patience with this. We have not closed on the Allen property, which is that area behind Inch Memorials. That is essentially a landlocked. I mean, there is an access road, easement, but it's landlocked. We have not closed on that. But in terms of the agreement that we signed, the purchase agreement, that was a long time ago and we did it at a public meeting, but we have not closed. We would not close on that property. We would do that separately as a city council action after this takes place and not at tonight's meeting. So just to clarify,
Right,
in case in thanking them,
right. Absolutely.
inferred that it was completed. It's not.
Any other comments from council members? So at this point, we had a motion in there, but we have modified that to be a little bit
Yeah,
more
so,
clear.
right, so, working with, Mark Abbo, George Lahanas, and also our city attorney, we have it's a little longer motion than the simple sentence, that we had proposed. So I'm going to read that. And it will be, I believe, while I modified it specifically related to the city, it'll be, I believe, consistent with what the township will be also voting on in a couple hours. I
About a
think
half
that-
hour.
Yes. So, this is a long one. It's shorter, longer than our normal motions, but at least it gets these things on the record for this significant land purchase. So, whereas Charter Township of Northville entered into that certain purchase and charitable donation agreement dated July 12th, 2024, signed by the seller 7/17/24 and amended October 11th, 2024. Whereas Charter Township of Northville has conducted substantial due diligence as set forth in the agreement. Whereas the Charter Township of Northville and the City of Northville must commit to move forward on the purchase or terminate the agreement on or before November 15th, 2024, or terminate the agreement. And whereas the Charter Township of Northville's purchase of this property in the City of Northville is in furtherance of its use as a farmer's market and community entity. Know therefore, be it resolved that the City of Northville Mayor is hereby authorized to proceed with the acquisition of the property and expend such sums as necessary and do all other acts as necessary to acquire the property as set forth in the agreement or as may be amended. And as a comment to that, just as a clarification, we don't have any funds we're expending right now, but we just wanted that language in there. Although
Absolutely.
the expectations at this point, that sum is zero for this acquisition,
Right.
but we have that in there. So it is acquire the property as set forth in the agreement or as may be amended, which would be between now and the closing. And that is my,
Clerk Smith, do you have that? You have a copy in front of you too.
Yes.
So you
Mhm.
didn't have to take copious notes on that. So we have a motion. Do we have support of that motion? It's a long one, but we made it very clear.
After 5 years, I'd love to support.
Okay, so we have support. Any other discussion on this?
I would just like to just get maybe a final comment from our attorney and say, do you find this to be acceptable for what is needed? And does it align with what the Charter Township will be doing this evening?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, just to make sure everyone's clear, and there's some concern that we would end up with landlocked property. The way that this is all designed, this will close on the front property for the township. We will then subsequently close on the back property and combine those properties. So this accomplishes all of
It's
this.
an if then, no risk to the city.
Correct.
Yep, that's what I thought.
Thank
Okay.
you. Great
So I
comment.
support.
Thank you. So with that then, any other discussion? We have a motion properly supported. I'd like a roll call vote on this if we could do on Clerk Smith. Sure.
Carter? Yes. Janetti?
Yes.
Krenz?
Yes.
Morosky Brown?
yes.
Turnbull?
Yes. Thank you very much. Unanimous vote on that for the city, for our partners working with them in the township. With that, before we go to adjournment, this is your time if you want to say anything. Again, I thank everybody, especially those that are veterans out there. Yesterday was a busy day. I had 4 different activities in VFW and the American Legion and different senior centers around. It was a great day to think about those that have come before us, and we're all on the shoulders on what they've accomplished and the freedoms that we have today. So I thank many of you that I saw some of you at some of those functions yesterday. I think the banner program in Northville for the chamber is outstanding. We have almost 250 banners, representing those that have served in the Northville community. So thank you. I see you out there, Mr. Wallace. Thank you for all you do on that. Third, get ready for that lighted parade. That's coming on the 22nd. That's something you do too out there. It doesn't take too much time or energy. Thank you very much for that. That is a Friday night. Is that correct? Okay, very good. And we'll have it coming right through town. So that's all I have on my mindset. Others today.
No, you guys can go first. Okay.
Good,
No, we'll be bright and brief.
Good.
Nothing here.
good. Anything, John? All yours?
Okay, so I am, Allison Long spoke before us at public comment. And I would still offer, I know Jim Long, at the planning commission who's leaving said, we need to talk. And I said, yeah, sure. We handshaked. And so I look forward to additional conversation, one-on-one, and happy to meet with Allison as well. But one thing I will first agree with one thing that's written here is that businesses do come and go for a number of reasons. And we have seen this over the years in Northville. We're always sorry we're happy when they come here and choose to do business in Northville, and we're sorry that they leave. And so I would so not only agreeing with that, but over the years, when I will regularly, if I see, business closing and they're still there, I will go and thank them for being there, wish them well, and then talk to them about, what are your plans? What are you doing? Sometimes they're just closing, and other times they're moving someplace else, or it could be somebody's retiring and what are your plans? So I have routinely done that for years. So my stopping by Design du Jour on that day, and I did have Mia with me, my little dog, was not unusual for me. In fact, I think the first one I ever went to, remember when we lost the Pendleton shop? Does anybody remember the Pendleton? So, I mean, I can't say that I do it for every store, but, I'm just grateful that they chose to be here and want to wish them well. So that was, in that spirit is when I went there. So I will recount a bit of that. The other is that, as I said at that planning commission meeting, it was so, and I apologize to planning, it was unusual. I routinely attend planning commission meetings. I just do. I sit in the back of the room. I listen, I learn. And that was the first time when there was an application before planning commission that I had ever spoken. Because that's not something I do. But what opened it was, and I said to the applicant that was there that night, I said, I'm making this comment and it has nothing to do with that particular applicant. But in that situation, what happened is Jim Long got up and in his preamble before he talked about the application, he talked again about Design du Jour closing because of the street closure. That was his opening thing. And then he went in to talk about the applicant, which was all great, the new applicant. And this was and as I said, when I came up to planning and said this was so unusual for me to say something, it was the third time that had been stated at a public meeting. The first was before City Council. The second was at the parking study group workshop. It was primarily DDA parking committee members at that, but others as well. And then this was the third time. So it was the third time it was going to be on the public record. Third time that you'd pull up something that was said on a public record. I felt that, so I said, there's contrary information out there as well. And so I recounted what I had been told. And what I would say is that I do not and did not lie that night in terms of what I had been told by that owner. I did not spread harmful misinformation or anything slanderous. And nor did I say meaning Longs is the reason for the business closure. What I said that night, which is still true, there are many things that go into a business closing. But the assertion was it closed because of the street closure versus many factors that go into it. So one is I'm going to recount what happened because I can say that what is in this affidavit doesn't even resemble anything of the conversation I had. that day when I walked in and had that casual conversation. One is, so I'll recount that just briefly. So I went in again, as I mentioned, sorry that they're leaving, to wish them well, and what were his plans. And he did talk through, well, I'm thinking about this or this place, and maybe not have a retail, but maybe just do interior design. So he was talking about all those future plans, right? And that was nice. And he said, you know, it's just been, and because he started his business in 2021, which is part of my thank you to him, which was still the height of the pandemic and risky for him to choose that. Our streets were closed. But so I just thanked him for being there, never mentioning street closure because that wasn't my purpose for being there. And I said, you know, but as part of that, sorry you're leaving. He said, yeah, I really wish I couldn't leave. He said, December was good. He said, but then he said, you know, January, February were really tough. He said, but I know they're tough for a lot of people. And then he said, and he's offering this, I'm not asking. And he said that, you know, he was hoping that once, you know, some warmer weather kicked in, blah, 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 that things would pick up. But he said it was really tough. He had been going month to month with his lease more recently. And I don't know what's real and what's not. This is what he's communicating to me. And he said, and he had been told that his rent would go up $1,000. And I said, $1,000? And I said, well, what is your base rent? And he told what it was. I said, well, that's a substantial increase. And I said that would be tough, you know, given what you're saying. And so I did say that. I never said it's sad that Jim Long is raising your rent. I didn't even know if the rent was being raised until he'd bring it. And I would say that Sam did not say anything disparaging against the Long family, against, you know, his experience as a tenant there. He did not. But that I tried to get him to admit he wanted the streets to remain closed? Absolutely not. In fact, in doing this, he said, well, and I don't think it has to do with the street closures. And I said, well, you know, because there was a couple articles that he was part of the reason he went there, that Art in the Ville, in Hometown Life, that part of the reason he was here was because he liked that environment. And he said, but I don't know. He said, no, I don't think it had to do with the street closures. He said, it's just business was tough. And he said, unless the one thing he just, I'm trying to think how, he said, unless he said, there's a lot of anger in town. So I don't know if some of that anger causes things to happen. And I just didn't. So that was the conversation. I did not bring up the topic of street closures. He discussed that as part of that longer story he told me in terms of the rent and month to month. He did not, that's what he told me. I don't know when that month to month started or anything like that. And in terms of the rent increase, he told that as part of his story of what went into his decisions. So, you know, what he's saying in here has no resemblance to either the character or intent of my walking in there, which was simply to wish him well, and which I would do to other businesses if I have that opportunity, to wish him well and to ask, you know, what his future plans are. And so that is it. I am happy to meet with you, Allison, to talk if you wanted to, or your dad, as he had already you know, said something to me about meeting. So I am happy to do that. But and so that is truly recounting the conversation I had. The reason I don't regret walking in there and saying that, that's something I would do to any business. And there are many reasons a business closes. And that is.
Great.
And I want to make.
You are not, but I appreciate it. I encourage you to get with the Longs. I encourage you to report back at a public meeting, Allison or your dad, but thank you so much for clarifying that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention today, Allison. Thank you, Father, too. Encourage you to get with them. Again, I thank everybody for being here tonight. This has been a time of coming together for 4 or 5 years to do the right thing. And with our partner in the township, we can do these things because we have everybody working together, 6.5% of all of our citizens. It's a great opportunity working on things. Because of that, we can get things done. And Mark and I will work tirelessly to get funding to do the rest of these things. So I'm looking for a motion for adjournment. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll support it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?